He's Ryan Day, head coach at Ohio State, national champs. Coach, congratulations. How much of this was joy and how much of this was relief?
Yeah, it was a combination of the two. Yeah, it was both. Um, and I think the whole run that we went on throughout the playoffs was that way. I really haven't had as much fun coaching a team like that in a long time. It was just a bunch of guys together. There really was no class because class was out, and we just spent a bunch of time together and had a bunch of fun playing. But in the end, as we head into that last game, we just knew that it would just be another story that kind of comes and goes. But now the fact that we won, we're able to cement that story in the history of college football and obviously at Ohio State.
But take me back to Michigan. And I had a former player say this to me, that when Michigan tried to plant the flag, that maybe brought your team together or more together. Whether that's true or not, you would know that better, but it's almost like it galvanized this team. Nothing's going to be easy, us against the world. They embarrassed us. Now let's go out and prove that we're still the best team. Anything I'm saying that wasn't true?
I think it's certainly part of the story of the year. There's no question about that. Um, and I felt like this team was close anyways. I thought we were galvanized. Um, but when you go through something like that, you have to regroup and figure out most importantly, what happened and how do we get these things fixed? So, there's a lot of ways to look at this and some more dramatic than others. But the truth is we had to get things fixed. There was things that were just not right coming out of that game that, in all three phases, we need to get addressed. And that was the bottom line. And there was a lot of other things that came with it, as you know. And, once we got those things addressed and the players recognized that things needed to get fixed and knew the plan going into the Tennessee game, there was just there was a collective, just like you said, a bunch of guys together saying, all right, we're going to make this run and we're going to be dangerous once we get some momentum going again.
But how does this affect you personally? You lose to Michigan again, and that topic in Columbus, in that state, and you're I don't know if you're fighting for survival or what. Tell me your emotions where you lose to Michigan again, and you know the importance of what that means.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, there was obviously disappointment amongst all the other emotions, but once those things kind of come and go and you have a couple days, you have to refocus yourself. And as difficult as that was, it was an opportunity to write an unbelievable story in the next month. And I felt like it was an opportunity for me as a dad, as a husband, and as a man to show my family that, when you get knocked down and you're backed up against the wall, that it's about how you handle yourself and how you fight yourself out of these types of situations. And then, for our team, for the guys on the team and the seniors and even the young guys to watch, how you handle yourself and then have something to grab onto for the rest of their life, and then serve as an example for all the Buckeye fans who, certainly, had ups and downs this season, but we're able to, see how you handle yourself when things get really, really difficult. And I think that really defines people's character.
It was reported there were death threats. How do you talk to your kids about that, or your wife about? How do you process that?
I think every year for us, it's become easier to manage when, our family first was named, the head coach in 2019. My wife and the kids were smaller then. We were all sitting on the bed together, and I've told the story before. She said, started crying. She said, our family's never going to be the same again. And she was right, but that didn't make it easy. You're expected to win them all. And when you don't, it's tough, but that's because of the passion, and nobody puts more pressure on themselves than myself and my family. Nobody wants to win more than my kids and my wife. So it isn't so much that, because they're more disappointed than anybody could possibly be in Buckeye Nation. And so we shared the same frustration because, my family and my kids want to win worse than even I do. I mean, that's the way they're wired, and they love the fans. And so, when you do lose, there's a feeling of disappointment, and, you share in the frustration with people because they love it so much. But that's also living, you're relevant. I mean, that's what makes Ohio State so special, is because people care so much. Now, with that comes some craziness, but that's okay. It also makes when you win that much more special.
What was it like when you saw your family after you won the title?
Yeah, that was a special moment. Something that I'll always remember. Just the fact that you could look at your family and your wife in the eyes and say, "Hey, we did this thing together," and they did. They were a big part of it, and we know where we were about a month and a half ago, and where we are right now, and it was pure joy, like you mentioned earlier.
He's Ryan Day, head coach of Ohio State national champs. Take me back to the 3rd and 11 call. Who makes the call, and what was the other option in that situation?
Well, we were trying to run down the clock. We had there's a point in the game where we're up by multiple scores, and you start doing the math on it, and you're like, man, if we can just run out a few minutes, each time we have the ball and continue to get some first downs, and we can milk this thing and win. And when you're talking about being that close to a national championship, you're holding on real tight. Maybe you held on a little too tight, but on first and second down, we were going to run the ball. We thought about throwing it on second down because we saw man-to-man coverage on the outside. And wanted to keep the clock running, and then they called the timeout, and on the headset, there's a lot of back and forth there. Our whole offensive staff, I thought, did a great job throughout the whole run. Chip's obviously right there, and we said, we run it one more time and chew up the clock. And some guys said, no, let's call a third down play. And so we looked at the call sheet, and we saw a play that is one of our base plays that we put in day one, where literally it's a go ball on the outside of the outside receivers and a middle read by our H and a couple checkdowns by the inside guys. And we say, if we're lucky enough to get one-on-one on the outside, then we're launching that thing up away from the free safety. And we had worked hard on that route in particular because we knew we were getting a certain technique in the game. And so when we saw it, our eyes lit up, so did Will's, and certainly had to be executed, but it was like in slow motion.
I was going to say, what's it like when that ball's in the air?
Slow motion, just like holding your breath. Knowing that if we catch this thing, we're probably national champs. And there's an unbelievable picture. It's a still photo from the sideline from the other way. You can see our entire sideline as the ball's in the air. And just the look of everybody's face on that sideline is amazing, just because everyone can see, like, if we catch this ball, we're going to be national champs. It was quite a moment.
How difficult is it to keep your roster together? There's a report that Jeremiah Smith offered $4.5 million. Like, Ohio State doesn't usually lose players, but now in today's NIL and transfer portal, everybody's fair game. So how do you go about having conversations or retaining some of your players?
I think the first thing, you have to bring in great people and great families. But you also have to value them and try to do everything you can to get what they deserve and what's fair. But there's also something to be said for being around a program like ours. And, you think if it's all equal, we'll have a chance to get our share of guys. But it is different. There's no question. I think as coaches, we're all looking for a little bit more guidelines on this. I mean, everything is so gray right now. And
but how does that work, though, Coach? That, let's say I wanted to talk to Jeremiah. Let's say I'm Georgia. I want to talk to him. Like, how does that go about, that you get in front of somebody, or, you put a price tag? And is there tampering in college football?
I think one of the big issues that we have across the board in college football right now is enforcement. I mean, you just, some of the stories of some of the things that have gone on just, within the last couple of years or even in the past, but enforcement is really strained right now. And so until we start enforcing some of these rules, like you said, I mean, people can just call someone's agents or someone's parents and offer them a certain amount of money, and then it goes from there. And that's just part of it. I mean, there's so many other things that come in place. So that's one of the things, to me, that I think we've got to get addressed in college sports and college football, is enforcement, because right now there's virtually none. And it's gotten worse as time has gone on.
When's the last time an NFL team reached out to you?
They don't really reach out to me. They would reach out, I guess, to my agent, and that happens sometimes. But we've not really engaged, because I love Ohio State. and I want to be here as long as I can.
So that's not a goal.
No, that's not a goal. It's not a goal. And I wouldn't say that I wouldn't consider that somewhere down the line, but my son is a sophomore in high school. My daughters are in middle school. They love it here. And, I want to be here, through their run through high school, and then, see what the next phase brings. But like I said, once the confetti fell, that was it. It's on to the next year.
I know. Do you get a vacation?
Yeah. We'll have some time, but
okay.
But it's not like, we're going away to Tahiti for a week talking to anybody.
Were you on the phone to recruits after the national title?
Recruits and our current players and yeah.
That night,
Yeah,
that's a great thing. Saban would do that. He'd win a national title, get on the phone and say to a recruit, hey, you could be celebrating with us. Confetti probably in his hair. Did you do that?
No, but what's interesting is the timetables changed. So the early signing day, we had 145 guys on our team this year, and over 20 of them were recruits that started classes on January 6th. So they were actually with the team for the last 2 games. So instead of the signing day, which should be happening next Wednesday, they had already signed and were enrolled in classes. So like the timetables changed a lot. But we have obviously, been recruiting the 26 class, which is about another year away.
Where would you put Jeremiah Smith with the other receivers you've coached?
Well, after the first year, it's hard to put him anywhere other than one. I think some of those guys had great freshman years, but not like this.
We need to check his birth certificate. Like, how old is he, Coach? Come on.
He's 19 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's special. We knew he was special, and his maturity is beyond his years, physically, mentally, and emotionally. He's a special talent, as you know.
Congrats. Enjoy it while you can, because we know what happens as soon as season starts. And then there's the Michigan game. keep smiling. Never ends, does it? Thank you, Coach.
Never does. Much respect. Thanks.
That's Ryan Day, head coach of Ohio State.